cannonballs fly before they're forever banned. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, for today's class, we would be dealing with the song Blowin' in the Wind by Bob Dylan. Now, I hope you're all familiar with this great musician and composer, Bob Dylan. He was born in the year 1941. Why is he so important in this field of literature? One reason is because of the songs that he's written. And yet another major reason is that he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 2016. Now this song, usually we learn poems or prose or essays under literature, but here we have a song in our syllabus. And why is this song so important, so significant? In fact, this is a milestone, especially when it comes to the civil rights movement of America. Now, Bob Dylan was just 20 years old when he wrote the song, and it is said that he took just 10 minutes to write this particular piece. And if you look at this song very carefully, you see 3 stanzas, and after each stanza, we have an answer, which is considered to be the refrain of the song. A refrain is rather a poetical device. Now, each stanza has 3 questions. Now, these questions are rhetorical in nature. As we've already seen, Bob Dylan writes this song when he was just 20 years old. And this song is considered, or rather called, as a protest song. And he is also a person who wrote folk songs, pop music, and so on. But this song, Blowin' in the Wind, is a protest song. Now, this is also considered as an anthem for the American civil rights movement. It is very important to know this, that this is a song which is considered to be an anthem of the American civil rights movement, or also the anti-war movements. What does this song talk about? As we already know, it's a protest song. It talks about war, freedom, and peace. Now, I think it's important to know a bit about the civil rights movement. What is the civil rights movement? Well, the civil rights movement in the US was a decade-long struggle. Now, this was basically a struggle to end the racial discrimination that was prevalent in the US. We are all familiar with the racial discrimination that was there in the US long back. And we also know as to how Martin Luther King did dream of a world when they were all together. I hope you remember the speech, the very famous speech, "I have a dream." I have a dream, which was given in the Lincoln Memorial at Washington, D.C. You know what's something very interesting about this particular speech and the song? This song, Blowin' in the Wind, was sung before this speech was given out to the public. Protest song, Blowin' in the Wind, right before the speech, I Have a Dream. Now, as I've already mentioned, we have 3 stanzas, each stanza with 3 questions, and they are rhetorical in nature. Let's move into the song. Let's take the first stanza. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Now, if you look at the first stanza, he asks us to how many roads must a man walk down before somebody can call him a man? So you can see the first symbol out here, which is a road. Road symbolizes the human experience. What are the different human experiences that he has to undergo before he gets to be a human being? Or what are the troubles that he has to suffer before someone would recognize him as a man? So Bob Dylan is asking this question, how many roads, how many turmoils, how many sufferings, how many experiences must a man walk down, journey into, before he can be called a man? And you know what he says again? How many seas, rather a question that he asks, how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? So here again, the next symbol out here is a white dove, which symbolizes peace. So he's asking, how many times would you have to sail across before you can come and rest, before the dove can rest in the sand? How long does he has to fly? Just like this white dove which sails across many seas and before she can come and sleep in the sand. So it's the number of times that we have to turmoil before we can rest at the end of our day, or before we get some peace at the end of the war atmosphere that we have out here. And the last question in the first stanza he asks, how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? He's hoping that these cannonballs would be banned, and before which how many wars, how many violence must he have to come across before this is actually banned? So he's hoping for a better tomorrow, hoping that the war would come to an end, hoping this violence would come to an end, before which he has to cross these wars. And here again, the third symbol out here is the cannonball. So we have 3 symbols out here in the first stanza. The first one being the road, the second one, the white dove, and the third symbol is a cannonball. Can you see this? They're all rhetorical questions. One of the poetical devices, a figure of speech that you can see out here. And after every stanza, we have a refrain, a repetition. And what do you see in the refrain? The answer, my friend. He's calling, hello, my dear friend. He does not consider any one of us as a stranger, but he says, I am just as you. Come on, my dear friend. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is here. You have to feel it to know it. Just like the wind which comes from, nowhere and goes to nowhere. We do feel the wind by the air that we get in. Similarly, we can feel the answer, but we have to see it. You have to look closely, observe closely to actually see the answer. Only if you keep your eyes and ears open, you would be able to feel the answer. And therefore, he says, the answer is blowing in the wind. It's right there. You got to feel it. Unless you feel it, you will not be able to experience the answer. So the answer is you. You have to bring forth the answer. Then we move into the second stanza. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head pretending he just doesn't see? And then follows the refrain. So what does he say in the second stanza? How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? So here again, the mountain is a symbol of power, of oppressive rulers. So he's asking out here as to how many years do we have to face these oppressive rulers? Here, if you very closely look into it, the usage of sea can be metaphorically used for the people's protest. So he's like telling us as to how many times will these oppressive rulers rule before it's washed to the sea, hoping that the people would bring about a protest out here. So he's basically fighting against injustice. This song is all about the protest, fighting against injustice. And it's that injustice that he talks about in the second stanza, about the oppressive rulers. And then look at what he asks. How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? So he talks about, mentions the slavery out here. So he's like, what a pathetic condition. How sad a state of affair. How many years can these people exist before they're allowed, look at the term, allowed. Somebody has to let them free before they're allowed to be free. Very sad, very disappointing a state. And then he's like, this is something that you and I, we all have to look into. How many times can a man turn his head pretending he just doesn't see? How many times can you keep ignoring people? How many times can you, the rulers especially out here, how many times can you pretend that you've not seen the slaves, that you've not seen the injustice? It's very hard to keep on pretending, but there will be a day. And that is why he says, the answer is right here. It's blowing in the wind. The answer, my dear friend, it is blowing in the wind. You and I, we are the answers. You got to see it. You got to feel it to let others and yourself know the answer. So in the second stanza out here, he talks about slavery, the injustice, and the corruption, the powerful who is corrupt in nature. So that is why he asks, how many times can you keep ignoring? Turn his head, pretending he just doesn't see. It's all a matter of pretense. And the last bit of the song. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. So look at the third stanza out here. He talks about the sky, which is yet another symbol out here of boundless freedom. He's, asking this particular question, a rhetorical question. How many times must a man look up You have to keep on looking at the boundless sky, hoping that you would be free from this injustice, hoping that you would be free from the slavery that you are in. How many times must he have to look up before he gets there, before he can see the sky? And how many years must one man have before he can hear the people cry? The people are literally crying out there because of the injustice which is prevalent. And he's asking, how many times will they keep crying? How many times will you keep looking at them pretending that you haven't seen them? A question that you and I have to ask ourselves. You can actually place this in different context. Here, the context out here is the slavery. Especially as I said, it is the anthem of the anti-war movements and especially the American civil rights movement. So this is a question that he asks. When will you open your ears and see the people out there crying? Can you just open your eyes and see them rather than pretending that you have not? And the last question of this song, how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? How many times will you keep on looking at the different deaths that is right in front of your face, and how can you keep on ignoring? Too many people have died, too many. And how can you still consider that you have not seen or heard them? How many? So he's, literally, you can see the frustration out here in this song. Bob Dylan is asking how many people would keep on dying. And then you would say, too many deaths, let's take an action. Do we wait for the deaths to happen before we take in the action? Do we wait for such things to happen to bring in the solution? Can't we place this in different context? So this is the last question that he asks. Do you have to literally take away someone's life to be able to give an answer? And then he says, the refrain, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Just like the wind. He doesn't know where the answer comes from and where it's going. But he for sure knows there is an answer. It is right there. You got to feel it. You got to see it. And the answer is right in front of you. That is why he says, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. So this is the answer for us. It's right there, blowing in the wind. Remember, I told you that he wrote this particular song when he was just about 20 or maybe 21 years old. And this is a folk song, a protest song about war, oppression, and indifference. On the whole, if you look at the song, we do see several symbols in each stanza. And I also mentioned about a metaphorical representation by the sea. We have several questions out here. Each of these questions are to reflect. And when you look at the answers sound quite ambivalent in nature. They are the refrain of this particular song. So when you look at this particular song closely, you can see how Bob Dylan is looking at the world. He notices it very carefully. He notices the unnecessary death, war, chaos, disease, notices suffering of people and their fight for freedom. And he also notices the willful ignorance of some people who is unable to look at the sky. But at the same time, he acknowledges the people who really fight for their struggle, who fight for their freedom, and hoping, just like the white dove, will have some peace and they will be able to get some rest by moving away all the mountains, rather the obstacles in front of them. So that is why he's telling us, you and I, come on, dear friend. The answer is right here, right in front of you. It is just blowing in the wind. It's right there. Just open up, look up to see the answer. So this is for you, Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind, a protest song. Thank you.